Pensacola.
All right,
Thank you so much for your time,
on your
Rebecca.
screen, that's a live view on the left-hand side,
Public Affairs Officer at the
Dragon
Johnson Space
Endurance.
Center in Houston,
On the right-hand
Texas.
side is thermal cam tracking the recovery
as you can
operation.
see
There on your screen, that's a live view on the left-hand side inside Dragon Endurance. On the right-hand side is thermal cam tracking the recovery operations.
As we get closer to capsule lift.
We've got you loud and clear. Okay, we copy. Thanks.
All right, have you the same. I'll be back on board with updates
So while
as we
the
get closer to capsule lift.
crew members were doing their private conference with the flight surgeon post splashdown, just an initial check to make sure that everybody's feeling okay, doing good. We took those comms out. Crew members just were doing a check to make sure that we got the comms back on the public feed post splashdown. This is actually here our first live view of a normal camera doing good recovery operations. Comms out. So that was just a check to make sure that we got the comms back on the public feed. This is actually here our first live view of a normal camera of recovery operations.
SpaceX, be advised, we're going to be transitioning the forward link. Will be unavailable for approximately 5 minutes.
So at this point in time, the recovery team is kind of split in half. Half of them are located on the recovery vessel Megan, which is the location from which we were receiving so at this point camera view that we just had previously. This one is obviously coming from inside in half the Dragon capsule. Are located on the recovery vessel Megan, other half of the recovery teams are in those fast receiving. They've been tasked with retrieving the parachute. This one is obviously coming from as well as performing the safety checks post splashdown. The other half once again, those were basically performing checks to make sure there weren't any hypergolic or pyrotechnic residuals, as well as performing the safety checks. Obviously, pyrotechnic could be dangerous for explosive reasons, but hypergolics are incredibly poisonous residuals if you breathe them. So, which we weren't able to see it super clearly on the screen for explosive reasons, but the hypergolics had personal protective equipment to ensure that they were breathing them. So, clean air while they were performing those checks. Those sweeps we heard were nominal, so that was the green light for equipment to ensure the other portion of the fast boat clean air while they were performing those checks. There is actually a SpaceX recovery team member, so that was the green light around the capsule at this moment in time. Hopefully we can get that view back fast boat momentarily. It looked like there might have been something in the way of the camera previously, but when we have that view back, crawling around the capsule at this moment in time, hopefully we can get that view back. Basically, momentarily, it looked like there might have been something in the way of the camera around the capsule, but when we have that, those will be used to lift the capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. But of course, those straps have to be put in place by hand itself. So there's somebody actually you can lift the capsule out of the water. I think that was actually Jasmin's hand that we saw in the shadow. I thought maybe it might be put in place by hand. The shadow of the individual crawling around the capsule. Actually, you can through the window, but yeah, there's somebody actually think that was actually Jasmin's hand that we saw in the shadow. I thought maybe it might be in the correct position and secure them. The individual crawling there's a number of harnesses that are required as window, but yeah, there's somebody actually crawling around quite heavy to place those harnesses. Those are all in place in the correct position and secure them. There's a number of harnesses that are required to the recovery vessel using the vehicle itself is hydraulic heavy, and that will basically put the capsule onto the vessel in a nest, which into the recovery vessel using movable hydraulic lifts. We basically and that will the capsule basically put into the nest on the aft end onto the vessel in a vessel, and then we translate or we pull that nest forward. We so basically the side hatch is at the into the nest on the which of course is where of the vessel, and then we translate or egress from the capsule. That nest now we can actually see that side hatch where they're about to egress from the unloading platform at the bottom center of your screen. We will see the item there that is in a capsule black outline. We can actually see that side hatch where they're about to egress. That side hatch is the same hatch at the bottom center of your screen. It's how many days did you say? 199 days?
Yes, they were in space for 199 days. Of those 197 were on board space station, of course, to include the transit to and from space station.
Gotcha. How many days did you say? All that time, that side hatch
yes, they were in space for 199 days. Of those 197 were on board space station, of course, to include the transit transit to and from space station.
Gotcha. So all that time, that side hatch was utilizing the forward hatch as the crew was utilizing egress the space station, of course, because that's where the docking adapter is located. So that's the point in which Dragon has to dock with. So that's the point in which Dragon has to dock with the space station. So yeah, that side hatch that we can kind of see there. So yeah, that side hatch that we can kind of see there. First time, it will open for the first time hundreds of days, and it will be hundreds of days. And it will be fresh air. Crew-7's first breath of fresh air. That side hatch, of course, goes through multiple checks while it's still on the ground. And it obviously is not on the ground intended, and it obviously is not for use while it is for use while it is.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if you're just joining us, it's been a busy,
and if you're just joining us, it's been a busy but very exciting early morning for us here in Hawthorne from the coast of Pensacola,
Crew-7 Splashdown off of the coast of Pensacola,
Pacific time.
2:47 a.m. Pacific time.
The crew is still in the capsule awaiting
while the team works through that.
Recovered while the team
works through that.
Moved onto the boat and discussing KB.
Get out of the hatch that is directly in front of them.
Out of the hatch that is directly in front of them.
About the Crew-7 mission.
Just some quick facts about the Crew-7 mission.
199 days in space total. Of those 199 days in space total. Of those 197 were spent on the International Space Station. They completed 3,184 orbits of the Earth and traveled more than 84 million around the Earth, which is just statute miles around the Earth, which is just a massive number when you think about it.
Has logged 199 days in space over his increments.
199 days in space over his increments.
Of course, he was a part of Expedition
and will have totaled 279 days in space. 199 days in space.
Time from his
Satoshi
previous space
Furukawa
flight.
of the Japan
Aerospace
Exploration Agency has the most time in space of this
Jasmin
crew.
Moghbeli's
He has
first
logged a
space
total
flight,
of
so of course she's logged
366 days in space over 2 flights.
Satoshi Furukawa
of the Japan
Konstantin
Aerospace Exploration
Borisov of
Agency has the most
spent
time in space of
199
this
days in
crew.
space as well.
He has logged a total
very
of
first space flight.
366 days in space.
Just a couple
over 2
more fun
flights.
facts for you
And
all.
the crew saw the
Konstantin
arrival
Borisov
of 7
Roscosmos,
visiting vehicles, which included 2 SpaceX cargo dragons.
very first space flight.
That was SpaceX 28 and
Just a
SpaceX
couple
29.
more fun facts for you all. The crew saw the arrival of 7 visiting vehicles, which included 2 SpaceX cargo dragons.
Loud and clear. Forward link
That was
transition is
SpaceX
complete.
28 and SpaceX 29.
Dragon SpaceX, com check.
And so we did hear that call out a few minutes ago that there would be about a 5-minute comms outage while they work to get communications configured. All of that is now
And so we did hear that
properly,
call
so we
out
might hear some more
a few minutes ago
communications
that there would
back
be
and forth
about a 5-minute
crew ahead of
comms
their
outage while they work
recovery
to
and
get
placement on the
communications
vessel.
configured. All of that
But
is
just to
now
continue those
configured
fun
properly,
facts
so we
for
might
you
hear some more
all, so
communications
the crew did
back
see
and
7
forth,
with the
visiting
visiting
vehicles
vehicles
arrive.
arrive. They saw 7
placement
visiting
on the
vehicles
recovery
depart,
vessel.
and there was one
But just to
spacewalk
continue
that took
those
place
fun facts for
during
you
the
all,
Crew-7
so
mission,
the crew
and
did
that
see
included
7
NASA
visiting
astronaut
vehicles
Jasmin
arrive.
Moghbeli.
They saw 7
for a 6-hour and
visiting
42-minute
vehicles
spacewalk,
and there was
the very
one
first in her
spacewalk
career
that took place during the Crew-7 mission, and that
incredible
included
day
NASA
on station.
astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli.
And the hundreds
for
of
a
science
6-hour
experiments
and
they also
42
contributed to as well,
spacewalk,
so
the
they
very
were
first in her
certainly
career.
busy during this increment.
I bet they're probably
incredible
looking forward
stay
to a
on
nap or
station.
two once
And
they
the
are
hundreds
back
of science experiments
on,
they also contributed
on
to as
firm
well, so they
ground
were
and
certainly
have
busy
done-
during
have
this
gone through
increment.
their end
they're
of
probably looking
mission
forward to a
proceedings.
nap or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And once they are
back
successfully on the recovery
on firm
boat,
ground
they will take
and
that
have
helicopter
gone through their,
back to Florida. So they
end
splash
of
down off the
mission
coast of Pensacola,
proceedings.
and then they'll ride
absolutely.
and
And
once they are
plane back
successfully
to
on the
Houston
recovery
and,
boat, they will
complete
take
some
that
additional medical
helicopter
checks,
back
rehabilitation,
to Florida.
they splash
and
down
then
off the coast of
for
Pensacola,
both Satoshi
and then they'll ride
and Konstantin, they'll fly back, and Andy as well.
back to
They'll fly
Houston
back to their
and,
respective countries. This
some
was the
additional
very
medical
first
checks,
mission actually where every single seat is occupied by a member from a different space agency. So that's exciting to see as well.
Very cool.
They'll fly back to
So
their
on the
respective
note of,
countries. This was the very first
recovery
mission actually
after,
where every single seat is
performing a
occupied by
long-duration space
a member
flight.
from a
We
different
will be
space
assisting the
agency.
crew
So that's
members
exciting to see as well.
outside as as they egress on the note of the side hatch. Recovery standard procedure, performing a long duration space flight missions. We will be assisting because they have been up there for an extensive amount of time, and of course the body changes while you're in standard procedure for NASA crew missions. Because they have been up there for an extensive amount of time there, and of course the body changes while you're in microgravity. So you can see the recovery platform there in the foreground of this particular view. That is exactly where the crew will ultimately be assisted to. And then we can see the Dragon capsule in the background there, bobbing very gently in the silky black waters there. I have to say, I've covered, and then we can see the Dragon capsule in the background maybe there, seventh bobbing very gently in webcast, and this is silky black waters there. I have to say, I've ever seen some of the views that we had earlier. The water just looked like glass. Maybe seventh. The waves are so calm. So webcast, it's great to see. Obviously, those make for easier, quicker recovery conditions. Some of the views that we had earlier, the water about a minute ago, there were 5 minutes out. The waves are so 4 minutes out from lifting the capsule. It's great to see. There is a hydraulic lift easier, quicker there at the back end of the capsule. Oh, there's a great view of about a minute ago with our recovery team members. 4 minutes out from lifting the capsule. Positioning there is a hydraulic lift there at the back end of the capsule. There's a great view of it there. Team members was on the capsule. I think positioning they have jumped off the hydraulic. It looks like the fast boat is departing. So team member that's always one of my favorite, but also like terrifying moments to watch. Is that SpaceX team member with actually no, they're still there. So the area where they're standing is actually that's always one of my favorite, but also like terrifying moments to watch. So all 4 parachutes are packed so tightly they fit back there. Actually no, they're still there. So the area where they're standing is actually the bay where the main parachutes are packed. Team member is all 4 parachutes are packed so tightly the harnesses back there on Dragon Endurance, which will be basically hooked onto. So by the rigging, we can see that hydraulic lift is doing the final preparations for the harnesses. Once everything is attached, we will see that individual that is on the capsule jump off into that hydraulic lift. And of course, we don't want them to be on the capsule while it is being translated attached. We will see that individual that is on the capsule jump off into
remain in the nest during the crew extraction and then for the journey back into port.
Translated up and onto
so we'll stand by for that lifting to happen just a couple minutes from now once they get in the nest during the crew extraction and then for the journey back into port. And so I did just want to jump into, we were talking a bit about the crew and how they would be helped out of the capsule, and this is a very standard procedure for NASA.
Dragon SpaceX.
And so I did just want to jump into, we were talking a bit about the crew and how they would be helped out of the capsule, and this is a very standard procedure for NASA individual jump off the capsule here in just a second, and then the capsule will be lifted onto the recovery vessel.
I like to think of this as the SpaceX
so
swan dive.
We will see that individual jump off the capsule here in just a second, and then the capsule will be lifted
and is now making his way over to the fast boat, where I like to think of this as SpaceX recovery team swan dive. Members will pull them on board just like that. There we can see jumped in. Don't blink because the lifting of the capsule takes just a matter of seconds. It's quite smooth and members will rather pull them on board just like that. Like you were saying, we're going to lift that up out of the water and place it in the nest. The lifting of the capsule translated takes just a matter of seconds. The recovery deck, and there we can see Dragon Endurance now being lifted out of the water. Like you were saying, we're going to lift that up out of the water and place it in the nest. That nest will then get translated a little bit, but it will be centered using the tethers. Dragon Endurance now being lifted out of the water using those hydraulic lifts. Swinging a little bit, but it will be centered using the tethers and then placed into that nest. All in all, this seems like a pretty quick recovery. Let's see, if we had splashdown at
247.
All in all, this seems like a pretty quick recovery. Let's see, if we had splashdown at 247. I don't want to call this for sure, but this definitely feels like one of the fastest recoveries I've ever been a part of.
SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are now completing final checks.
I don't want to call this for sure, but this definitely feels like one of the fastest recoveries I've ever been a part of.
SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery
So at
vessel. Recovery personnel are now completing final checks.
3:14 a.m. Pacific, Dragon Endurance has been lifted up and out of the Gulf of Mexico and is now 6:14 a.m. on our recovery vessel. 3:14 a.m. Pacific, Dragon Endurance has been lifted up and out of the Gulf of Mexico.
So next up we will see Dragon appear to slide forward as it gets a little further in on the recovery vessel, and then the team will work to open up that hatch and get the crew out. Next up we will see Dragon expect the crew to slide forward as it gets a little further in on the recovery vessel, getting removed from the capsule because they have been aboard the International Space Station for the past again we do 6 months, even though they work out for a couple hours a day to maintain bone and muscle health from the capsule. The adjustment they have been aboard the International Space Station for the past can be 6 months, even though they work out for a couple hours a day to so as a safety precaution, we always do just health any of our crew members returning back from space out of the 1G environment. So again, we're about 30 minutes or so since we splashed down, so as a safety precaution, we always off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. They're already on the recovery vessel, and we are just again we're awaiting the next steps about 30 minutes or so since we splashed down, or since Crew-7 rather splashed down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. They're already on the recovery vessel, and we are just awaiting the next steps in the process exiting or egressing from. Is in the center of your screen there. It's kind of a square-shaped. And the hatch that they'll actually hatch there, and exiting or egressing from is in the center of your screen there. It's kind of a square hardware around the edge of the hatch once they get it open to help protect it, and then we'll see the crew hatch there out. But we'll see the footrest get removed to give a little more space for the crew as they work through hardware around the edge of the hatch once they get it open to help protect it, and then we'll see the crew come out. But we also ensure that astronaut safety is a little more space for the crew as they work through those recovery operations as well.
With that, because like you said, it's we'll be assisting the crew. We want to ensure that astronaut safety is priority number one, and footrest is just gives the recovery teams a bit more room. We will be assisting the crew to move around to egress out of the capsule.
Absolutely, and you can see a more internal view of the hatch that we were just referring to there. Towards the lower portion of your screen, you can see the black outline around it. That is, of course, the hatch that the crew will exit. You can see a more internal view of the hatch that we were just referring to there. Dragon towards the lower portion of your screen, you can see the black outline around it. That is, of course, the hatch that the crew will exit out of. That's been closed since they entered recently. Dragon all the way back in August for their
on-time splashdown of Crew-7 at 5:47 a.m. Eastern, 2:47 a.m. Pacific, recently tuned in. Just 3 minutes ago, on-time splashdown Dragon Endurance capsule Crew-7 at 5:47 up and out of the water and into a.m. Pacific, the nest of the recovery vessel. 3 minutes ago, the recovery Dragon vessel Endurance utilized for Gulf operations was lifted up and out of the water and into one the nest of the recovery vessel operations. And the recovery vessel utilized what we see here for Gulf operations. This is a cool view because we can see it better now. I want to point it out before we use it is that bay where the main parachutes are stored. That we see here are rounded square. This is a cool view because we can see it better now. I want to point it out right underneath where that individual is stepping into, where the main parachutes, if you can imagine, that is that gives you a good perspective of just how tightly those main parachutes have to be packed in there in order to stow them. And if you can imagine the drone parachutes, for those of you that might be wondering, those main parachutes we don't really have quite as good of a view, but they come from to stow them the bay just above the side hatch. The drogue parachutes, for those of you that might be wondering, are we don't really have quite as good of a view, but they come from we will look ahead to see is when Dragon will slide a little further back in the recovery boat, like we mentioned earlier, and then we'll have the next major milestone that we will look ahead to see is when Dragon will slide a little further back in the recovery boat, like we mentioned earlier, and then we'll have the hatch opening process begin to get underway.
So again, everything continuing to go really smoothly this morning following a splashdown at 2:47 a.m. Pacific of Crew-7, completing their 199-day mission in space, 197 days aboard the International Space Station at 2:47 a.m. Pacific of Crew-7, completing their 199-day mission in space, 197 days aboard the International Space Station yesterday morning at 8:20 a.m. Pacific. So like we mentioned, a little less than 24 hours for their journey back to Earth. The crew actually undocked from the International Space Station yesterday morning at 8:20 a.m. successfully off the coast of Pensacola. So, like we mentioned, and now the recovery team is just working through those procedures in order to get the hatch open and get the crew out here shortly. They splashed down successfully off the coast of Pensacola, and now the recovery team is just working through those procedures in order to
point in time, as you
get
can see,
the hatch open and get the crew out.
Dragon vehicle is still positioned at the aft end of the recovery vessel. Once everything is in place, we will translate the nest Dragon where the capsule is still positioned at the aft end of toward the forward end of the once the vessel is in place, we will translate the nest located where the capsule is sitting. SpaceX team members and NASA team members the forward end are awaiting the vessel, and that is where Crew-7 team recovery deck is located. SpaceX team members will where additional SpaceX team members and NASA team members, which involves an additional waiting sweep for the Crew-7 team, and SpaceX team members will, like you mentioned earlier, go through the side hatch, removing the side hatch and placing which involves a bit of protective covering around the edge of the side hatch. This helps to protect not only the capsule, but also, like you mentioned, team members that are going in the capsule and placing a bit of protective covering around the edge of the side hatch. This helps to protect not only the capsule, but also the team members that are going in the capsule to help.
So it does look like they are starting to wrap up this portion of Dragon being in the nest. So we should expect that translation to occur here in just a couple minutes from now. So it does look like they are starting to wrap up this portion of Dragon being in the nest. Attachments from the vehicle. We should expect that translation to occur here in just a couple minutes from now. They'll remove some of those attachments from the vehicle before that translation occurs. And so from this view, we do have a pretty good view of both the nose cone being closed, which closed prior to splashdown, but that is the hatch. So from this view, we do have a pretty good view to the International Space Station, as well as being entered the International Space Station. It's not the one that they're going to exit out of. That is this morning, though, they're going to exit out of that side hatch there. You can see it in the middle of the Dragon capsule, as well as enter the International Space Station. It's not the one that they're going to exit out of this morning, though. They're going to exit out of that side hatch there. You can see it in the middle of the Dragon capsule.
Also known as TPS. That is all of the white paneling around the side. We also have a good view of Dragon's thermal protection system. It is a little less white as TPS than before. If you recall, that is all of the white paneling. It was a around the pristine white, and that is not the case anymore. After re-entry, the thermal protection system has done its job than before. Quite beautifully. If you recall, I love how no capsule return is identical. They're kind of like a fingerprint. They all look a little different as the thermal protection system has done its job, and quite beautifully. I love how no capsule return is identical. They're kind of like a fingerprint. They all look a little different.
Following the crew getting out of the Dragon, they will, as we mentioned, be taken by helicopter back to shore, and then eventually back by plane to Houston, Texas. Getting out of the Dragon vehicle, as we mentioned, be refurbished, taken by helicopter to the processing facility in order to be reused eventually again. Back by plane to Houston, Texas. And the Dragon vehicle, so it does look like we are seeing that translation taken back to the processing facility in order to be reused again. And so it does look like we are seeing that translation. And another view here, we can continue to see that translation as it occurs. It'll get put right in between those two gate areas. We can continue to see that translation as it occurs. Opening operations.
We can also see a SpaceX team member hosing
right
the
in between
vehicle
those
down.
two gate
This helps
areas,
to wash
and then the crew can
some of the
begin
salt
to
water
work
off.
hatch opening operations.
Obviously, we can also see a SpaceX
We want to
team
ensure
member
that
hosing the
corrosion
vehicle
is
down.
controlled.
This helps
anything
to
that comes into
wash
contact with
some of the salt water
salt
off
in general,
is
obviously
quite corrosive, and so
we want to ensure that
basically rinsing the
corrosion is
capsule off to
controlled.
try and remove as much
anything
of
that
that
comes
salt
into
water as
contact with
possible.
salt water, salt in general, is quite corrosive, and so
some of the next steps that we'll see
basically
will
rinsing
be
the capsule
personnel
off
on
to
the
try and
recovery
remove as much
vessel
of that salt
that
water
are
as
specialized
possible.
in opening up the hatch begin that process.
Yeah, we
And
can
so
actually
some of the
see
next
they've
steps
donned
that we'll
their
see,
PPE
will be
once again,
personnel on
so they're
the
going to perform
recovery
some
vessel
additional safety
that are
checks
specialized in opening
to
up the
ensure
hatch,
that there are
begin that
no
process.
hypergolic
we can actually
residuals or
see
fumes
they've donned
there
their
around
PPE
the
once
side
again.
hatch. So they're going
Once
to
again, this
perform
is
some additional safety checks.
hypergolic fumes are
to ensure that
toxic,
there are no
if you breathe them
hypergolic
in. So we want to
residuals
ensure
or
that
fumes there.
none of those are
around
remaining.
the side hatch. Once again, this is the hypergolic fumes are toxic.
And this view back
if
inside
you breathe them in, so we want to
Dragon,
ensure that none of
as
those
you can
are
see,
remaining.
NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli, commander, and ESA, European Space Agency astronaut Andy Mogensen. Dragon. As you can see, Jasmin's first flight, NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli, Andy's second space flight, and ESA, European Space Agency astronaut Andy Mogensen. And so we also do have medical doctors on board that help to take care of the crew after the hatch opening and will conduct a series of initial checks before they are flown. And so we also do have helicopter doctors on board that help to take care of the crew after the hatch opening and will conduct a series of initial checks before they are flown off by that helicopter back to shore. So as the team continues to work through those hatch opening operations, it is important to note that Jasmin Moghbeli, Andy Mogensen, Satoshi Furukawa, and Konstantin Borisov will be getting some assistance from their recovery teams while they exit the capsule. This is the same process for any returning long-duration space flight for Dragon. Also see it. We'll be getting some assistance from their recovery teams while they exit the capsule. They're helped out of the capsule. This is the same process for any transported long-duration space flight recovery time. Dragon. So this is standard operating procedure for long-duration space flights with crew on board. They're helped out of the capsule and transported via chair over to the medical recovery tent. So this is standard operating procedure for long-duration space flights. It hasn't even been an hour since Crew-7 splashed down at 2:47 a.m. Pacific, and they are already on the recovery vessel. The team has secured them in the Dragon's Nest. Crew-7 splashed down at 2:47 a.m. Pacific, a little bit closer into the prime position for hatch opening. On the recovery vessel, the team are beginning to step through some of those procedures to get that hatch open here shortly. A little bit closer into the prime position for hatch opening. Getting another view here, and they are beginning to step through some of those procedures to get that hatch open here shortly.
We can see that they've removed the access panel
another view
on the
here
side
of
hatch.
the hatch. You can see
Excuse me.
it pretty clearly in your screen.
That side hatch access panel basically protects the location where we perform the side hatch leak check. So we will
Dragon SpaceX,
that side hatch
stand by for
access
side
panel
hatch opening and
basically
egress.
protects
We'll be
the
passing you off to
location
the
where
recovery team.
we
And see you back
perform
in
the
onboard
side
soon.
hatch leak check. So we will
Dragon SpaceX,
Dragon
stand by
Captain's
for
right
side
here.
hatch opening and egress. We'll be passing you off
So
to
yeah,
the
that
recovery team.
side hatch access
And see you back
panel
in onboard soon.
is where we are able to untorque as you can see
Captain's
in
right
action
here.
now. So yeah, that side hatch access panel is where we are able
And the
to
side hatch
untorque,
is open for the first time in
as you can see
199
in action
days.
now.
And the side hatch is
We're
open
getting
for
some
the first time in
waves from
199
Crew-7.
days. First face they've seen back on Earth since August. Like we're getting some waves from
Once again, this is
Crew-7.
their first brush of first
space
of
they've
fresh
seen
air
back on Earth since August.
in several months, and once again, the first time that the side hatch has been open. The last time it was open was the day they went to space. In several months, and so it looks like here just again, the SpaceX team member has been open. Doing initial check-in. The last time it was open was making sure that everybody is feeling okay. And so it looks like here just feels ready to team member from the capsule, doing initial check-in, probably letting them know that there is making sure that everybody no return trip at this moment, no rocket in place, feels ready to egress from the capsule.
We'll have to wait to be reassigned for the next one, I guess.
Know that there is,
so again, Crew-7 launched back in August 26th of 2023. So in all, they spent 199 days in wait to be reassigned for the next one, I guess. So again, Crew-7 launched back in August 26th
safety equipment installed around the hatch just for protection purposes and for reuse capabilities. And then we'll even begin to see some of those footrests begin to be removed to just give the crew a little more space to get out.
But first, the photo
for
opportunity.
reuse capabilities. And then we'll even begin to see some of those footrests.
We probably couldn't see it from this view, but I have a feeling that there was some
just
thumbs
give the crew a little more space to get out.
But first, the photo opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
At this point in time, we should see some of those footrests. We probably couldn't see it from this view, but I have a feeling that there was some thumbs up for the photo. Not entirely sure what the order at this point in time we hear in terms of some of those footrests egress first. To it always varies from crew to crew. Not entirely sure what the may have some footrest coming off now. Will be here. Once again, this just allows the folks that are assisting the crew in their egress a little bit more room to work. We may have some footrests coming off now. Once again, this just allows footrests are custom sized to each astronaut in their egress a little bit more in terms of like small, medium, or large. So in order to ensure maximum safety and comfort, are custom sized to customize the footrest in terms of as small, medium, or large. So as well as the bucket ensure maximum safety and comfort, rather that they sit in. Customize as every astronaut is different, as well as the armrest, and so to ensure that everybody is able to remain comfortable and safe. Bucket, rather that they sit in. Items are customized for their body proportions. As well as and the so to ensure that everybody is speaking of spacesuits, we can see that those visors are in the open and items are customized for their body crew was safely splashed down. They were given the okay to lift the visors. Speaking of spacesuits, we can see that those visors down and in the locked position open once we were outside of those dynamic once events. The crew was safely splashed down, they were given the okay to lift the visors. That have just recently joined us, those down we had in the locked position. Beautiful nighttime splashdown at 5:47 a.m. Eastern or 2:47 a.m. Pacific. For those of you that have just recently joined us, Dragon Endurance vehicle is now on board our nighttime splashdown at 5:47 a.m. Eastern or 2:47 a.m. just off the coast of Florida near Pensacola. Dragon Endurance and we're now awaiting on board the egress or the exit of our four Crew-7 members, and this will be just assisted out onto Florida near Pensacola. And we're now awaiting
the recovery vessel is actually named after NASA astronaut Megan McArthur. She flew on board Crew-2. That was my first space launch I ever got to see in person. So really special to get to see her launch. She also flew is actually named after NASA astronaut Megan McArthur. She flew on board Crew-2. So that was my first Crew-7 launch I ever got to see in person. Megan's namesake. Really special to get to see her launch. She also flew here in just a couple minutes. They are working to install that safety equipment around the hatch, as well as remove the footrest on board Megan's namesake. We are expecting egress typically here in just a couple minutes. The commander or the pilot install egress or get out of safety equipment around the hatch, as well as remove the footrest. And that's just due to the proximity of their location to the hatch. We'll either see usually it's a little easier to get one of those egress or get out of there ahead of the seats first. Mission specialist and that's just due to the proximity of their location to the hatch.
For Megan,
usually it's a little easier to get one of those two out
the Atlantic recovery vessel is named after after Shannon Walker, who flew on the NASA Crew-1 mission. So we named these recovery vessels after our first two female astronauts to fly in after Shannon Walker, our Dragon capsule. So I love the NASA Crew-1 mission. So we named these recovery vessels after our first these incredible women that have fly in, taken part in our Dragon capsule spaceflight here at SpaceX. The tribute there that we have paid to.
So as they continue to step through those procedures, again, just a reminder, we do expect the crew to be assisted out of the vehicle, as well as be assisted in standing up and getting. So as they continue to step through those procedures, again, just a reminder, we do expect in order for those initial medical checks of the vehicle, this is standard for all long duration space flights, and standing up and getting, and they'll jump right into their post-flight reconditioning period that begins on Splashdown day, and it lasts for about 45 days to help return crew members to their pre-flight condition, and they'll jump right into their mentioned. They do exercise while on board the International Space Station for a couple hours a day. It lasts for about 45 days to help return bone members to their pre-flight muscle mass and prevent that loss. Like we've mentioned, they do exercise while on the environment of the International Space Station, and there is still a recovery period that takes place. And again, that's about 45-day periods. Just get them back because of the microgravity environment of the International Space Station. There is still a recovery period that takes place.
They will be transported
again, that's
back
about a
into
45-day period. Just get them back to pre-flight
one of
condition.
the medical bays that are immediately on board,
after they
the
egress
recovery vessel, where they will be seen by
capsule,
the flight
they will
surgeon
be transported
for
back
a
into
preliminary medical checkup.
One of the medical bays
egressing.
that are on board the recovery vessel, where they will be seen by the flight surgeon for a preliminary medical checkup immediately after egressing.
It looks like we are going to have our very first views of egress here.
I think that may have been.
It looks like we are going to have our very first views of egress here. Andy's second space flight. He's from the European Space Agency.
I think that may have been Andy.
This is Andy's second space flight. He's from the European Space Agency. And Andy Mogensen now out of Crew-7 capsule. And you see he is getting assisted there. That is completely normal, and as expected, this will take place for
Andy
all
Mogensen
4 crew
now
members of Crew-7.
Yeah, this
capsule.
Is standard procedure when we
and you see he is getting
the NASA
assisted there. That is
from
completely normal, and as expected,
Dragon,
this will take place for all 4 crew members.
Assist them into. Yeah, this is standard procedure.
It's not quite a wheelchair.
When we
it's not quite
egress the NASA astronauts from. I can't think of
from Dragon.
I can't think of the word for it. It's not a gurney.
Assist them into.
But we roll them back into the medical bay.
It's not
and this
quite
just
a
helps
wheelchair.
ensure their
it's
safety. Because sometimes, even though we had amazing recovery conditions tonight, it's not always the case. Sometimes we can get wave height of a couple feet.
This just helps ensure
which
their safety.
Could make for an unstable
because
vessel.
sometimes, even though we
regardless
had
of the sea
amazing
conditions,
recovery
we always
conditions
assist
tonight,
the crew.
it's not always the case.
Getting
Sometimes
out
we
of the
can get
capsule
wave
and
height
making their
of
way
a couple
back
feet
to the medical bay, which could make for
We did
an
see
unstable
some thumbs
vessel.
up and some cheers for Andy Mogensen as he egressed the capsule. Next up is going to be the commander of Crew-7. That's NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli. This is her first space flight. Cheers for Andy Mogensen as he egressed the capsule. Next up is going to be the commander of Crew-7. That's NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli. This is her first space flight.
Kind of the first time, because if you're born into it and don't really know what it's like to not feel it,
first time
I could imagine it would be feeling an experience to feel it and really feel it. Kind of the first time, because if you're born into it and you don't really know what it's like to not feel it.
Some waves there from
I could imagine it would
NASA
be
astronaut
quite an
Jasmin
experience
Moghbeli.
to feel it and really feel it for at this magnitude for the first time.
So next up out of the capsule will be the 2 NASA astronauts, Jasmin Moghbeli, Konstantin Borisov from Roscosmos, as well as Satoshi Furukawa from the Japan Exploration Agency. Out of the capsule will be Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, Konstantin Borisov from Roscosmos, as well as Satoshi Furukawa from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. So if you're just joining us, Crew-7 splashdown off the coast of Florida at 2:47 a.m. Pacific. We've had 2 crew members already egress or exit the capsule. That was European Space Agency astronaut Crew-7 splashdown off the coast of Florida at 2:47 a.m. Pacific. And we've had 2 crew members astronauts on board and were exit the capsule through those egress procedures. Space Agency astronaut Andy Mogensen, as well as NASA astronaut Jasmin Moghbeli, back to shore via helicopter, and then astronauts on board and were by plane back to procedures, everything going really smoothly. And from there, they will go to their respective countries. Again, as we mentioned, this is the very first space flight where every single seat was occupied by a member of a different space agency. And from there, they will are seeing on our screen there another one of the footrests. Again, as we mentioned, this is the very first removed space flight where every single seat the recovery was occupied by a member of a different space agency. In order to help on our screen there another one of the footrests as it is removed, just to give the crew the recovery.
As we mentioned,
crew, rather,
2
a little
of the
more,
4 have already egressed.
In order to help get
Excuse
the
me,
crew
we
out.
already have Commander Jasmin Moghbeli and pilot Andreas Mogensen. They've already
As we
exited.
mentioned, 2 of the 4
we now
have
have
already
Konstantin
egressed.
Borisov and
Excuse me,
Satoshi
we already have
Furukawa, Commander Jasmin Moghbeli
still on board.
and pilot
Excuse me,
Andreas Mogensen. They've already
It's early
exited.
or late.
We now have
Thank you,
Konstantin
Furukawa,
Borisov and
still
Satoshi
on board
Furukawa,
the Dragon capsule.
Still
And
on
we should
board.
see one of them
egress here just momentarily.
It's early or late.
Furukawa.
Thank you, Furukawa. Still on board the Dragon capsule.
And we should see one of them egress here just momentarily.
And it looks like they're beginning to egress now. And it looks like they're beginning to this egress now. Konstantin Borisov of Roscosmos, his first space flight. I believe this is Konstantin Borisov of Roscosmos, his first space flight. And Konstantin Borisov has successfully egressed. Some handshakes there. And Konstantin Borisov has successfully egressed.
Thumbs up and happy waves.
Yep. So handshakes there. Remaining looks like Crew-7 crew member inside Dragon is JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. So the this is remaining his second space flight. Crew member inside Dragon is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. Again, this is his second space flight. And so Satoshi Furukawa actually has the most time spent in space of Crew-7. He's logged a total of 366 days in space over 2 flights. And so Satoshi Furukawa actually has just a little time over a year in space in all. He's logged a total of 366 days in space over 2 flights. So just a little over a year in space in all.
That's incredible. And it looks like he is now egressing. Once again, this is standard procedure for assisting all the crew members into the medical bays. Once again, this is standard procedure for assisting
and Satoshi Furukawa, the last member of Crew-7, now out of the vehicle.
So I just did a bit of math.
And
now
Satoshi
that we have
Furukawa,
officially
the last
egressed
member of Crew-7,
all 4
now out of
crew
the
members, we had an on-time
Splashdown at 2:47 a.m. Pacific. We lifted the capsule officially egressed onto the recovery vessel at 3:14 a.m. So that was a total of 27 minutes
Splashdown
for recovery operations.
Pacific.
And then it lifted the capsule from 3:14 a.m. to 3:42 a.m.
So that was a total of 27 minutes
another
for recovery
28 minutes. So it
operations.
basically took just as long.
And then it was
from 3:14 a.m. to
lift them out of the water
as it did to
when
bring
we
them out of the
egress
capsule.
another
So all in all,
28 minutes.
really
So
efficient recovery operations. So congrats to the SpaceX recovery team on such efficient operations
lift them out of the
Absolutely,
water
less
as it
than
did
an hour
to
from
bring them out of
splashdown
the
to
capsule.
egress. So great to
all
see
in all,
that.
really
And
efficient
now that
recovery
Jasmin,
operations. So congrats
Andy,
to the SpaceX
Satoshi,
recovery
and
team
Konstantin
on
are
such efficient
safely back home on
operations there.
Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their return. And now that Jasmin,
all kicked off
Andy,
on
Satoshi, and Konstantin are safely back home on Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team,
at the
we're
Kennedy
going
Space
to
Center
wrap
in
up our live
Florida
coverage
after
of
a
their
successful
return.
liftoff
and
and
separation from Falcon 9.
Jasmin,
Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin
from
historic 29-hour flight 39A at the Kennedy International Space Station. After since arriving at the space station, they spent nearly 6 months as members of Expedition Satoshi and Konstantin, executing science experiments and spacewalk to the International Space Station aboard the orbiting laboratory. Since arriving at the space
Their
station,
journey
they spent
home
nearly
began
6
about
months as
19
members
hours
of
ago
Expedition
on March
69
11th when
and
they
70,
closed the hatch to
executing
Dragon
science
and
experiments,
undocked
a
from the space
spacewalk,
station
and
at
repairs
8:20
while
a.m.
aboard the
Pacific
orbiting
time.
laboratory.
After 4
Their journey
successful
home
departure
began
burns
about
and a
19
phase
hours
burn
ago
to
on March
line up
11th
their
when they
orbit,
closed the
Jasmin,
hatch to
Andy,
Dragon
Satoshi,
and
and
undocked from the
Konstantin
space station
rested for a
at
few
8:20
hours
a.m.
before
Pacific
waking
time.
up to prepare
After
for
4
re-entry
successful
this
departure
morning.
burns
We
and a
jettisoned
phase
Dragon
burn
trunk
to
line
excuse me,
up their
we
orbit,
jettisoned Jasmin,
Dragon's
Andy,
trunk, and
Satoshi,
performed
and
our
Konstantin
final on-orbit
rested for a few
maneuver,
hours
the approximately
before waking up to
14-minute
prepare
long
for
orbit
re-entry
burn
this
at
morning.
1:56
jettisoned
a.m.
Dragon's
Pacific
trunk,
time, or 4:56 a.m. Eastern
Dragon's
time,
trunk,
and that
performed our
ultimately is
final
what
on-orbit
put Dragon
maneuver,
on its
the
path home.
approximately
The
14-minute
spacecraft
long
re-entered
burn
the Earth's
at
atmosphere and
1:56
slowed its
a.m.
descent with
Pacific time, or
successful deployment of
4:56